Hello and welcome to the next YouTube video on my channel. Today I will show you a very strong and popular Indian defense. How you can already see on the chessboard, this defense starts with pawn to d4 followed directly by knight to f6 by black. This defense is pretty modern and it basically just invites the white army to establish a pretty strong presence and dominance in the center of the chessboard with the plan to destroy them after in the following moves. The usual second move for white is now pawn to c4, which strengthens white's control of the chessboard, especially of the very important d5 square here in the center of the chessboard. And also this move allows the knight to develop on c3 without blocking the c-pawn anymore. Black's most popular replies on white's second move with pawn to c4 are either pawn to e6, freeing the king's bishop here and leading into lots of different variations of the Indian game, as for example the Nimzo Indian variation, the Queen's Indian defense, the Bogo Indian defense, and so on. The second most popular move is pawn to g6. This variation is called the King's Indian defense, preparing a fianchetto by moving the bishop here on g7, with the idea to attempt to exert pressure on white's center control. A variation which is a bit more aggressive is the Benodi defense, not with pawn to g6, but rather with pawn to c5 with an immediate counter push in the center of the chessboard. So how I have already said, the main response, or like the most popular answer on white's move pawn to c4, is pawn to e6. And here there are now really many different continuation variations, and I will now show you the main options. Knight to c3 followed directly by bishop to b4 is called the Nimzo Indian defense. It is called like that because it was advocated by the very famous Danish chess player Ara Nimzowitsch at the beginning of the 20th century. The Nimzo Indian variation was actually also the first Indian system to really gain full acceptance. So here the black army placed their bishop on b4, not only attacking our knight on c3 but also pinning it because it is at the same diagonal of our king here on e1. Here, black's idea is to trade the knights probably to weaken our queen side of the chessboard with doubled pawns. Therefore, often white answers here with queen to c2 to be able to capture back the knight or the bishop after the bishop has taken out our knight to not get doubled pawns. The second variation, which is pretty famous in the world of chess, is the Queen's Indian defense. The player who plays the black chess pieces often chooses to play the Queen's Indian defense when white avoids the Nimzo Indian by playing knight to f3 instead of knight to c3. So here on knight to f3, black answers with the main move of the Queen's Indian, bishop to b6, preparing a fianchetto, but this time not on the king's side of the chessboard, but rather on the queen's side of the chessboard. Therefore, it is called the Queen's Indian defense. So the Queen's Indian defense is considered a pretty solid, safe, and perhaps a bit drawish variation. So by choosing to play this defense, the black army constructs a sound position that makes no positional concession, although it is sometimes difficult for the black army to obtain good winning chances, especially on or in high-level chess. Pretty interesting is that you can actually play the Nimzo Indian and the Queen's Indian defense both at the same time. Here the game should just continue with knight to c3 followed by bishop to b4, and now we have both variations, the Nimzo Indian and the Queen's Indian, in one time. So this variation is then sometimes called the Queen's Nimzo Indian defense. The third most popular continuation variation of the Indian defense after black's second move with pawn to d6, which I would like to show you in this video, is the Bogo Indian defense. Here white continues again with knight to f3, but this time the black army or our opponent does not continue with pawn to b6 with the Queen's Indian defense, but this time rather instantly with a very aggressive check with bishop to b4. This is the Bogo Indian defense. So we can see here that there are really lots of different variations of the Indian defense, and in most of the cases our opponent, so the player who plays the black chess pieces here, can decide which of these many different variations he wants to play. So in the Bogo Indian, the player who plays the white chess pieces has to somehow block this check, and in most of the cases this check is getting blocked with the move with the knight on c3, transposing back again into the very famous Nimzo Indian defense. So how I've already said, black's most played second move is pawn to d6, but pawn to g6 with the King's Indian defense is actually also played very often, preparing a fianchetto now here with the bishop by moving it on g7. White can in this variation play the key move of the Nimzo Indian defense again with knight to c3, on which black either can answer with the very aggressive move pawn to d4 or d5, attacking the center with the Grunfeld defense. And another option for black is to just continue with the plan by doing the fianchetto here, by moving the bishop now on g7. So we can see that the player who plays the black chess pieces, so our opponent, completely gifts us the occupation of the center of the chessboard, and in the following moves they will attack it, especially with the very strong bishop here on g7. The third most played black's answer on pawn to c4 is a similar move, pawn to c5 with the Benoni defense. This variation of the Indian game is a risky attempt by black to unbalance the position on the chessboard and to gain active chess piece play at the cost of allowing our opponent to play the very strong move pawn to d5, advancing the pawn and controlling the center of the chessboard here. Here, pretty common answer or pretty common line of the Benoni defense is the modern Benoni. Here the white army advances its pawn and black answers with pawn to e6, trying to trade these pawns here, attacking our pawn on d5. But now for the white chess pieces it is not common to trade pawns here. More popular, way more popular, is the move knight to c3, so again the move of the Nimzo Indian defense, but here this move defends the now attacked pawn on d5 with the third chess piece. And this was it then already with this video, in which I have shown you the many different continuation variations of the Indian defense. Like for example the Nimzo Indian defense, the Bogo Indian defense, the Queen's Indian defense, and so on and so on. I really hope that you liked this video. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like there and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to write into the comments which videos you would also like to see on this YouTube channel. Till next time, bye!